Hi, welcome back to Country Basket Weaving. I'm your hostess, Sandy Atkinson, and this week we're going to be doing the back to class basket because August doesn't really have a holiday, so we're going to consider going back to school our holiday. For the material and cut for this pattern, you're going to need the following. 5/8 inch flat, cut 4 pieces 39 inches, dye 2 of them dark pink and leave 2 natural. From 5/8 inch flat, cut 11 pieces 32 inches long, dye 5 pieces dark pink and leave 6 pieces natural. 3/8 inch flat, you need to dye that cocoa brown. 1/4 inch flat, you're going to leave natural. You'll need 3/16 flat, dyed evening blue. 1/2 inch flat, dyed pink. 5/8 inch flat oval, leave that natural. You're going to need 3 or 5 millimeter cane, seagrass for your filler, and 3 yards of shaker tape in the brown. I've already went and laid out my 4 pieces to start with, and these are my 4 pieces that are the 39 inches. I have the centers marked on the wrong side and they're all laid out together in line. I'm going to take my pieces, my other pieces of the 32 inch pieces that have been cut. Mark your centers on the wrong side. Remember, we line up our centers and find our center. Then on either side of the center mark, you need a 2 and a 1/4 inch mark. So we have a total of 4.5 inches across the between the center line. With your first piece, you're going to go ahead and weave it in over and under. Line up the center between the 2 pinks. Check your marks here and make sure everything lines up. The edge of this natural piece is going to be on that mark that you made 2 1/4 from the center. And the same way on the other side. Here's the other mark, so that needs to be there. Then I'm going to take a piece of natural 1/2 inch flat, weave it opposite of the pink piece we just put in, give it some length on the other side, butt it up tight. This base has a closed bottom on it, which is really nice so that pencils and small items won't fall out. Bring this edge back, weave it opposite. Again, being very careful to stay right on that edge. Take your scissors and cut that length on top of the pink. The other one comes from the other side. Again, before you put the fold on it, make sure it lines up on the edge. And put the fold on it. It's going to weave right on top and hide this end here. And it's going to, the other end will hide underneath your pink piece. We're going to repeat this above, the same step, butt it up there tight. This is a nice way to close a bottom on a basket. And again, back this way. Overlap, and I'm going to cut the end there. Now I'm going to weave in another pink piece, and I already have these pre-marked. This piece will have to weave in opposite of this row here. And again, I'm lining up my center marks and checking to make sure my edges are the same. And I have to weave one up here. It's real easy as you're weaving this basket for these to start shifting and come in this way on one end. So make sure as you weave, they're all laid out and they stay all in line. Now we'll take another piece of your 1/4 inch and you're going to weave your fill-in rows on either side. I wanted to do one quickly for you because this row will differ a little bit from the first row. I'm going to butt it in tight. No, this one doesn't differ. You will come across some rows, probably the next one in, that will be a little bit different on the cutting. And just follow the pattern. Let's go ahead and add our natural one down here so I can show you that different weave. And again, I'm lining up my edges. This one's going to weave under and over. Butt it up tight, come back this way, and weave over. See how this one is going to be a little bit longer. It's going to weave all the way to this edge. And then this one is going to weave right on top, hiding your ends. And this one can hide way over here on the other edge here. I like to go as far as I can just to make it a little sturdier base. Go ahead and finish weaving them. I'll show you how that's done on the next layout. Now that I have my base laid out, I just want to talk to you about it for a minute. Here I have my pink, that was my very center spoke, and then on either side 2 more pink. Don't forget the filler rows in between. Then I laid out 2 naturals up here and below the center mark with the fillers, and then a pink, and then I ended with a natural. And we have to do these filler rows between each one. When you have your last natural pieces woven in, you take off your spoke weight, and I have just a piece of 1/4 inch natural. I'm going to come to the center spoke and weave under it. Remember, you always have to be on top, and this is a stabilizing row that I'm going to do around it now. I'm on top here because that's where I'm going to be back and end. We're going to weave this just in a basic basket weave, over one, under one. We're going to come to the corner. We're going to do what I call a miter, and this is going to be a fold, and then I weave it under, and I have that little fold there on the corner piece. Weave to the other corner. The same thing happens, except it's under this time. Put a little fold on it, a crease. Continue to weave it around. This is a real quick way. If you're in a hurry and need a basket for a gift or whatever, then this is a good quick way to weave the base for that stabilizing row in place of twining. And again, I'm folding it up. Right and wrong side doesn't matter when you're doing the stabilizing row because both sides end up at one time or another. I'm back to where I began. I'm going to weave right on top of this piece here, hiding that end, weave over for 4, cut that end to hide under that 4th spoke over. Now both ends are hidden. And now we're going to upset. When you upset using this type of a row, you're going to have the weaver come across, and that's going to bend right up on that. But when the weaver goes under, use your thumbnail and hold right there, so you get this bent edge right on the outside edge of your 1/4 inch stabilizing row. And go ahead and upset all of these pieces using your thumb. And then don't forget, we have to clamp up the 4 corner pieces, and this helps us shape the basket. Now that I have my basket all upset and I've used my clothespins to clamp up the corners, because that I use for helping to shape the basket, I'm going to use a piece of the cocoa brown that I dyed. Starting on the side, I'm going to flip it over because that was my side with my bottom overlap, and I want to start on the opposite side. Come back, you're going to this bottom row here, and you're going to be opposite weave. So I'm over on this one, I know I need to be under on this spoke here. And I like to use a clothespin to clamp it off. Make sure you have the right side up. I have the wrong side up, so I need to reverse it. Now my right side is up. That's a smooth side. When you come to your corner, undo your corner and go around the basket. And I like to put the corner back up and take the next corner off, and it goes back up as soon as I turn that corner. Watch you don't pull your corners tight. That's a common place for weavers to pull tight, and then it doesn't look nice when you get farther along in the basket. It really shows up. Around the corner, checking I don't pull it too tight. On this one, I'm going to undo the corner and keep right on going. When I'm back to where I started, check my corner here, then I'm going to come right across here, count over 4, and cut that end off. And I know it's going to hide under the 4th spoke. Cut it just shy of the edge so that it won't show. We want to be sure and hide our ends. After this row, what I've done in this plaid pattern going up the side of the basket is create a pattern, and it's starts out with the cocoa brown. The next row you need to put in is the evening blue, and then a natural row. I think I just told you backwards. You need the cocoa brown, natural, and then evening blue. And I've got that done in here. I have my 3 rows. Remember, as you put in the rows, you're flip-flopping the basket back and forth so that you're never starting that overlap on the same continuous rows. Make sure you flip them back and forth. And I have the cocoa brown, the natural, and the evening blue. Now I need to stop and work my handle in. What I have done with this shaker tape is I have 3 yards of it. I laid it out flat, and I overlapped the ends here about a ½ an inch, and then I just simply sewed them back and forth. I used white thread so that you could see what I did. You'll probably want to use the brown thread, and I stitched it back and forth. From the top part of that stitch mark, you're going to measure 10 inches because I want it to be 10 inches up. So I'm going to the underneath piece here, measure down 10 inches, take my pencil mark and just make a mark there so I can see that. Bring that here. This pencil mark we just put on is going to be right here at the edge of our base weaving. Bring it to the center of the basket, find your center here and put another pencil mark. Then you're going to take this, fold it over, and find the center on the other end, and you can put a pencil mark there too. Okay, now I'm going to line this up again. It lines up against my 3rd spoke in. Here's my bend. Whoops, I have the wrong end here. It goes this way. I want my sewing edge to be up here. The reason for that is so that when my rim comes across there, this is going to hide that sewing mark and it's not going to be visible anywhere on the basket. Here's my 10-inch mark. I'm going to have that right on the edge there, and take my clothespin and clamp this around. Bring this side up here, clamp it on the opposite side. Now I have to watch my folds in here. I have to watch that this is laid out flat as I come to the other side and I start laying this piece out. And down around the bottom, up the other side of the spoke. And that center mark, you may have to do some adjusting, but you want to make sure that, see, mine are off. You want to make sure that this is lined up, the handles are even without moving your sewing mark. So that has to be a permanent mark there. So go ahead and make any needed adjustments. Get your handles even at the top of the basket, and then we'll continue on the weaving. I have my 3 rows here, my cocoa, my natural, and my evening blue. My next row is pink. And I have my handles all even, so the straps are even at the top of the basket. I did not move that sewing edge when I readjusted them. Now I'm going to do my pink row. Again, I am opposite of the rows in here. It's a basic basket weave. On this side, I know I need to be behind my handle. Keep in mind, the handle now consists of the handle piece and the spoke that's behind it. And I'm going to back weave a little bit. Remember, I like to back weave. Always starting on top. Here I'm on top here. Weave this around the basket. By now you probably can take off your corner clothespins. Make your weaving go a little faster. But don't be afraid to use some clothespins on the ends as you turn around here. Slip in a clothespin to help hold everything down tight. I'm going to grab one right here. Put a clothespin right in there. When I'm on the other side, I will be coming over my spoke with the handle attached to it. And we're going to weave that handle right into the basket all the way up, and it'll be really sturdy in there and it's not going to slip on us. That's another reason it's very important to have your handles even at the top, because there is no way to move them once we start weaving up the side. They just won't give. Keep your spoke straight up and down. Keep everything packed in tight as you weave along. I'm back to the other side. Notice I'm kind of shaping the corners as I go around them. Weaving under the handle piece. You're going to have to bring the weaver through. And when I get back to start, I am overlapping 4. Here's 1, 2, 3, and it's going to hide under the handle piece. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that off and weave it on top. The 6-row pattern, or the pattern is, you're going to do 6 sets of this pattern up the basket. And the pattern is your 3/8 brown, your 1/4 inch natural, your evening blue and 3/16, and then your pink, and then 1 more row of 1/4 inch natural. And that is going to be your pattern. Repeat that 6 times all the way to the top. Now that I finished my pattern up the side, what I did was, when I had to soak my handle, is I also brought it to the bottom and put a clamp on it to keep it so I could soak the top part. On the last row here, I've repeated this pattern 6 times up to the row of pink, and then you can do either 2 rows of 1/4 inch or a row of 1/2 inch. I had a scrap piece of 1/2 inch, so I just used that because it was quicker than the 2 rows of 1/4 inch. Then I'm ready to cut and tuck using a tool. I've left a few of these to do. I've done them all but these. On this one, because the weaver comes behind the spoke, I'm going to tuck it to the inside. I have too much length here, so I'm going to cut it off and tuck it down into that brown row, first into the evening blue and then into the brown row. If you have a hard time slipping that in there, like this doesn't want to slip, come up here and just take off the corners up there, and then it'll slide down in there real easy for you. See what a difference that made? Now, on the back of the handle, you're going to have a couple places, both of these places, where I'm going to go ahead and tuck this one down too, because the handle's coming up out of there. So that one's going to tuck down, pardon me, a couple of rows. And again, if it won't slide in there, I can cut off the corners. That one went in okay. This one, the weaver comes back on the front side, the weaver goes behind it, so that is a bend spoke and tuck. So that's where I have 3 of them right together that are going to tuck. But that's only going to happen on one side of your basket. And go ahead and tuck that down in there. And then the very last one, the weaver comes in front of it, back on the front side, so this one's going to be cut off even with the top of the basket. And go ahead and work that pattern around the basket. Now I'm ready to do the inside rim, and I have my piece soaking. Remember, we must keep everything nice and wet. On the top part, it's flat oval, flat on the bottom, round at the top. I'm going to whittle off about 3 inches. And I like to get that at least half or a little bit less than half of the thickness. And on the inside, the flat side of the reed faces the basket. Put my whittle here at a corner and use my clothespins. Not at a corner, but but at the end of the basket, and work that around. You notice I put my handles all towards the outside. While I'm working this part, I keep them out of my way. And you take your scissors. I'm back here where I started. Here's where I started my whittling. So I'm going to come in here and cut this edge off, that excess length, at my whittling. Back here is my overlap where it starts. Pick up this part of it and just whittle this back side off. That just helps it lay down there much nicer. Working with a sharp knife. Be careful, mine's kind of dull. And whittle that off and then place it back in there, and it should lay in there about 1 thickness thick now that I've whittled the back and front sides off. I'm going to go ahead and place, I've already whittled this one, and go ahead and place on my, before I do that, place on my outside rim. Take your handles, place them into the middle, and then come across here and put on your outside rim. And as I do that, that top row also hid my stitches. This will also help hide my stitches too. Okay, now I'm going to use a rim filler of seagrass, and I'm taking out my cane. On this one I'm using 5mm cane. On the other sample basket I use 3, so somewhere between 3 and 5. Come in here, starting anywhere, away from your handles and away from the overlaps. We're going to insert from the bottom up. The right side of the caning, which is the shiny side, is facing out, and we're going down on the outside. Go underneath either your 1/2 inch or your 1/4 inch rows. There needs to be a 1/2 inch row equal to a 1/2 inch underneath the rim. I'm coming in here and I'm opening up a space between those rows right above my pink row and inserting that back to the inside. I'm going to repeat that step one more time, and I'll leave the tail on the outside. Give it a tight little tug there. Pull it up there tight. It might stick a little bit. Just give it a tug and make sure everything lays in there flat. Now when I bring my my caning across, my right side is out. I'm running it between my fingers to straighten it out, get any kinks out of it. I like to put a point on this end, and I'm going to go over to the next spoke. Between the spoke and the weavers, again, I'm right above that pink row and back to the inside. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull this one tight. I need to, well, before I do that, let me straighten out this one part. Cross in front of the handle and go ahead and insert this end inside here. Then I'm going to come back, caught on my table there, and pull this down. Before I pull it down tight, I'm going to sandwich this seagrass. Now, sometimes, depending on how much of a distance I have between my 2 rims, sometimes I use 2 strands, and also depending on what size seagrass I use, this is about a 3, I use either 1 or 2 strands together. If I'm using 2 strands together, I'm going to run 1 strand on each side of the handle piece. So the handle is sandwiched and comes right up between the 2. Come back here and tighten this down, and then continue your lashing all around the top of the basket. When you're at your handles, you are going to cross back and make that cross on them. So I'm going to come across here and then pack in my seagrass, bring this piece of caning back and make a nice X on it there, and I'm going to do that at each one of my handles. I'll go back into that same hole that I've already been in on the left side of the handle, and I may have to, again, I'll have to use my tool to open that up and insert it in there. Okay, I'm going to pull that tight. And then bring this piece of caning behind the handle and cross it over, back in your seagrass, and we'll be going into the next spoke over here, between the next 2 spokes way over here. I'm going between each of the spokes. I'm not leaving any spokes without the caning between them. When you work your way all the way around the basket and you're back to where you started, let me get this end in here so I can show you. You're going to end the basket the same way that you started it. Make sure you lift that seagrass up gently and slide that end down there when you're doing that lock. Make sure that you hide that and then push that seagrass back down in there. But go ahead and finish your basket, and you'll have a really neat back-to-school tote for all those books and pencils and papers and things you need for school. Next week, we're going to be working on our Labor Day Harvest Bowl. We're going to be into the month of September, and of course we start thinking of fall and picking up our harvest in our gardens and stuff, so I've created a harvest bowl here. It's using a hoop, and it's not that hard of a basket to make, but it does take some time. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. I hope you have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.